wake up 10,000 years ago. A hunter 2 ridges over, named Podrick, has been going around telling everyone your last kill was actually his kill, dragged home while you were off napping. You send back the truth the only way you can, a runner, sprinting flat out with the message memorized word for word, and it takes him 4 days to get it, and 4 more for his reply to reach you. By the time it arrives, half the camp has forgotten what the argument was even about, including, somewhat embarrassingly, you. You don't want a faster runner. You want the reply back before you've even finished being angry. You start by making the runner faster. It doesn't work. A person can only sprint so long before they need to eat, sleep, and occasionally not die, crossing a river. You try relay stations instead, one runner handing the message to a fresh one every few miles, and it helps, some, but every handoff is a chance for the message to get garbled, shortened, or quietly improved by whoever's carrying it that leg. You try shouting from a hilltop instead, and it works for exactly as far as your voice carries, which is nowhere close to 2 ridges over. You try lighting a fire on a high point, so the next hilltop over can see it and light their own, and that one actually goes somewhere. A chain of fires can carry a single piece of information, a real distance, faster than any runner could ever move. The catch reveals itself almost immediately. A fire can only tell you yes or no. Enemy or no enemy. Danger or no danger. You cannot send Podrick is lying about the fish over a signal fire, no matter how creatively you arrange the smoke. You need something that can carry an actual sentence, not just a single bit of alarm, and carry it instantly, over real distance, without a person's legs anywhere in the chain. You rub 2 dry sticks and get a spark, and it's gone in an instant. Nothing you can build anything lasting out of. Rubbing amber against fur gives you the same kind of spark. Equally useless, equally brief. Then you try stacking discs of 2 different metals with brine-soaked cloth wedged between each pair, and something completely different happens. Current that keeps flowing continuously for as long as the stack holds together. Turns out you're not the first to land on this. A scientist a long way from your hut proves the exact same trick with the exact same materials, and it becomes the first real, sustained battery. Alessandro Volta, 1800. Current on its own is still just current. It doesn't tell anyone anything. Then you notice that running it through a coil of wire wrapped around an iron nail makes the nail grab onto anything metal nearby, and the instant you break the current, it lets go. You wire that nail up to a little arm that clicks against a metal plate whenever the current flows, and you realize you can now make that click happen, or not happen, from a wire's length away, the instant you decide to send it. Push, click. Push, click. You, being the genius you are, don't even blink. This exact combination, a battery, a coil, an electromagnet, and a wire strung between 2 points, becomes the basis of the electric telegraph. The version that actually spreads pairs it with a code of short and long clicks, simple enough that an operator can turn back into full sentences almost as fast as someone can speak them. Samuel Morse, 1837. Your smoke fire could tell someone, danger. A wire can now tell someone Podrick is lying about the fish. Word for word, the same hour you decide to say it. 1 wire between 2 huts works beautifully. The problem shows up the moment a 3rd hut wants in. That hut needs its own dedicated wire to each of the other 2, and a 4th hut needs 3 more, and the number of wires exploding outward gets worse with every new hut that wants to talk to every other hut. You try running every wire through a single hut where an operator manually connects whichever 2 lines are supposed to be talking to each other, plugging and unplugging cables by hand, and it works. This is how it actually gets done for decades. But it means every single conversation needs its own physical, dedicated connection for as long as it lasts, tying up the whole line even during the silences. Fine for 2 people talking. Hopeless for a whole village, let alone every village, all wanting to send messages to different places at the same time down the same handful of wires. The fix, when it finally lands, isn't a better switchboard. It's realizing you don't need a dedicated wire held open for the whole conversation at all. You need to chop every message into small pieces. Write the destination on each piece individually, and let pieces belonging to completely different conversations share the same wire, interleaved, each one finding its own way, and getting reassembled correctly at the other end. No connection sits open and idle. The wire is never yours alone. It's just passing through whatever piece happens to be on it, that instant. It's a strange enough idea that it takes 2 researchers who've never met, Paul Barron and Donald Davies, working the problem separately through the 1960s, to land on it before anyone takes it seriously enough to build. It becomes the seed of the first real experimental network a few years later, stitched together between 4 university computers. You, being the genius you are, don't even blink. Sorting and reassembling thousands of tiny labeled pieces, correctly, in the right order, faster than a human could ever manage by hand, is not a job for an operator plugging cables anymore. It needs a machine that can read an address, decide where a piece goes, and do it over and over instantly without getting tired or making a mistake. Your first attempt at automatic switching uses gears and levers, and it's slow, loud, and breaks constantly. What you actually need is something that can flip on and off cleanly millions of times a second, small enough and reliable enough to pack thousands of them into a single machine. Vacuum tube switches get you there first, but they run hot, burn out, and take up a whole room for not very much computing. A solid sliver of treated silicon that can do the exact same on-off switching job, cold, tiny, and nearly unbreakable, is what actually makes it practical. The transistor, built at Bell Labs in 1947 and refined over the following decades into chips packing enough of these switches to actually run your sorting and addressing automatically at the speed the whole scheme needs to work. Every one of those tiny addressed pieces still needs an address that means the same thing to every machine on every network. It might cross, not just the third hut on the left, but a system that works, whether the piece started 3 huts away or 3 villages away, across networks that have never talked to each other before and don't trust one another by default. This is the same problem the courier network solved generations before you, with a standardized system for writing who a message is from, who it's for, and which route it should trust along the way. Same shape of problem, just running at the speed of electricity instead of a runner's legs. The version built for this, a shared addressing and handoff standard every network agrees to honor, so a piece from anywhere can reach anywhere, gets finalized by 2 researchers, Vint Cerf and Bob Kahn, in 1974, and every message since rides on some version of it. The last piece is just getting a wire, or its modern replacement, a hair-thin strand of glass carrying pulses of light instead of electricity, physically strung between every point that wants to talk to every other point, under oceans, across continents, and to every hut that wants in. You string yours between your hut and Podrick's. It's not much. It's 1 wire between 2 people who don't like each other very much. It is, technically, an internet. Now watch what everyone actually does with it. The chief hears about the wire before you've even finished stringing it to the second hut, and by the following week has declared that every message sent through the village line must first pass through him, and that he will personally be counting how many people receive each of his declarations, a number he now announces daily with obvious pride, regardless of whether anyone asked to hear it. Podrick, naturally, cannot let the wire between your 2 huts sit unused. He sends an insult. You send one back within the hour, sharper. He replies faster. Within 3 days, it's no longer about the fish at all, and half the village has started stringing extra wire just to relay the exchange to their own huts so they don't miss the next line. A man named Grack turns out to have the steadiest hand and the most patience for the click-by-click work of operating the message line, so he gets pulled off tool-making entirely to run it full-time. The old tool-makers are furious. Nobody says anything to his face because he's also the only one who knows how to fix it when it jams. Someone submits a request over the line for 3 more spearheads, written across 9 separate messages, with a formal greeting, a summary of prior spearhead requests, and a closing line thanking the recipient for their time, because nobody has yet figured out that the wire doesn't require the same manners as a letter carried by hand. Grack, now effectively in charge of which messages get relayed onward first and which sit waiting, starts noticing that the juicier ones, feuds, accusations, anything about Podrick specifically, get requested for re-relay by more huts than the boring ones, like grain counts, so he starts sending those first without being asked. Within a week, the whole village is convinced there's some deliberate, mysterious system deciding what gets seen and what doesn't, and everyone with an unpopular message starts blaming the wire for burying it, never once suspecting it's just Grack, guessing. Then someone's message about a private conversation gets relayed onward by 3 separate huts before it reaches the person it was actually meant for, and by the time it does, it's been added to, corrected, and argued about along the way so many times that nobody, including Podrick, can say any more what was actually said first. You got your instant reply. It arrived in under an hour, exactly as fast as you wanted. You still haven't figured out how to make anyone believe it? Subscribe, and next time, try sending it by runner instead.